And then, come Tanay. This is Tanay Shankar, All India rank 136. Claps kottandi. Okay, today as part of our analogs toppers talk, it's a third session that we are having with Tanay Shankar. And then this in fact is a program meant for you students who are aspirants preparing for civil service examination. We want you guys to know and directly interact with the toppers so that you will come to know the experiences of these toppers and their journey to get into these services. Earlier we already had two sessions, one with Shahid, 57th ranker, and then with Nitin also, Nitin Sankhya. And then this is the third session. Okay. And then today the program would be, first he will be discussing about his entire journey right from the beginning till now. What kind of experiences he had, number one. Number two, see the best part of this guy is some of you, most of you might be, who are preparing for the very first time. He cracked very first time. The very first attempt he is able to crack. And the best part is, he just completed his MBA from IIM Indore, and not having much time to prepare for this examination, with very much paucity of time, with limited time, he is able to prepare the entire syllabus properly, thoroughly, and he is able to really crack this examination in the very first attempt. Is not a small thing at all. And now what you have to do is, you try to ask him certain questions later on in the end, how he is able to do this one. Anyway, he will explain everything, but in detail also you can ask him like, yes, how exactly he is able to achieve this feat. And he has got PSIR as his optional subject, political science and international relations. And in the end, those people who has got political science as your optional subject, maybe you can interact with him. You can actually ask him to guide you, maybe one-to-one session also we can have with the PSIR people, right? But that PSIR aspect will come only in the end. But right now, to address all the candidates here in general, he will be addressing the entire journey, entire preparation and the strategy that he has got, and what kind of a strategy that you need to create for yourself so that you can crack this exam in the very first attempt. Okay. So initially we will explain from his side, and then each GS essay paper, 1, 2, 3, even the fourth paper. And when it comes to fourth paper, he will explain little bit in detail, because today's session is majorly for ethics paper. After that, he can explain about the interview as well. And after that, we'll have question and answer session. And after that, we'll have a one-to-one interaction with you guys. Right? Thank you so much. Yeah, congratulations again. Just 2 minutes. As a formality, we'll fill state Tanay. All first. Thank you. Congratulations. This is our tradition. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's your this thing.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be back in Hyderabad. So I'll give you a brief about myself. I did my B.Tech in chemical engineering from BITS Pilani from 2011 to 15. Then I worked for a year at Dr. Reddy's lab in Hyderabad for a year. and then I did my MBA from IIM Indore from 2016 to 18. So my MBA ended in March 18, and my first attempt was in June, started from June itself. From June itself, and then I gave the mains and interview, the exam cycle. When I was in my school days itself, in class 9, I had decided that one day I will definitely appear for civil services exam. And but at that time, obviously we are too young, so all I could do then, there are many school students who come up to me and say that, what should I do now? So all I did then was that I read all my NCERTs very properly, especially the social science ones. Then I went for engineering. There also I decided in 2011 that it's my first year and I'll be eligible to attempt once I reach the age of 21, so I'll start a little bit of preparation. And I even got the book for general studies for prelims, and I started attempting the questions. But in 2013, there was a radical change in the syllabus. So ethics paper was introduced, one optional was there. Then I gave up on my preparation then. Then again in 2014-15, once I joined my job here, I decided that this is not really what I want to do right now. I really want to get into civils preparation. But again, things couldn't work out then. Then I joined my MBA. Then the first year of MBA program is very, very hectic. I did my summer internship. I was in Thailand. And after a summer internship, there is a thing called pre-placement offers that are given. And my name was not there on the list. So just before the second year started of MBA, I was without a PPO and I had two decisions to make. Either I will sit for final placements at IIM Indore, which is what 99.9% of people do at Aiims, or I would just withdraw from placements and go for UPSC preparation. And I chose the latter, which was a very big risk to take. But I had decided that I will not start civils preparation just by picking any book and reading through it. Because if you start reading books straight away, what will happen is that you will get lost in the endless material that is out there. So for 3 months, that is June, July, August, this was my term 4 at IIM Indore, I just planned what I will study. And I just prepared myself, oriented myself towards UPSC preparation. Okay. So first thing I did was I saw a lot of topper talks on YouTube. I read through many blogs of toppers. I decided to write, I made notes from their strategies, like what books they used, what test series they used, how did they use their test series, and so on. So entire June I did this. I laid the foundation of my preparation strategy. Okay, because without a strategy, entering into civil services is like swimming in an ocean. You don't know which direction you're going. Then in July, I started reading the most popular newspaper which is there, the Hindu. So we used to get a subscription in our library, but it used to be one day before. So I used to make it a point that in between classes, if I get even 1.5 hour, I'll go there and read the day's newspaper. So initially when I started reading the newspaper, I used to spend 3 to 4 hours on a single day's newspaper, which is too much. But slowly I discovered, again through toppers talks and their blogs, that what are the most important pages to read in the Hindu and how to best make notes out of it. And also due to my college schedule, many a times I could not make notes every day. So what I used to do, I used to go to the library on Sunday, and every time the library used to be empty on Sundays. So I used to take 6 newspapers from Monday to Saturday, sit with them and read it completely, make notes in 4 or 5 hours. So that is how I saved time there. So July was spent in developing this habit of reading the newspapers. So if on 1st July I was taking 3 hours to read one newspaper, by 31st July that time had reduced to 45 minutes per newspaper. If you see the newspaper, I can also discuss page wise. So if you take page 1, it has many issues of national importance, and that is very important. From 2, 3, 4, 5, the news is mostly related to local issues. So I used to skip that. Okay. Then 6 and 7 again are national news, and there you have to read selectively. So if you are well versed with the syllabus of GS beforehand, and even your optional, if at all your optional has something, some relevance for a newspaper. If you have an optional like maths, then obviously there's no need to selectively read. But if you have optional like PSIR or economics, something like that, then it's very important. Now 8th and 9th pages are the editorial pages, which are the most important. So each and every editorial, if it is related to the syllabus, you can consider it as feeder points for a GN's answer. So always make sure to make bullet point notes of editorials, especially if they are related to the syllabus, because many a times they can directly be the source of answers for questions. Then again, 10th page is the world page. So my optional was political science and international relations. So that was very important for me. Even if you don't have a different optional, GS2 has IR section. So you have to read that. Then 11 and 12 is business. There again, you have to read selectively. If it is the news about a company, an IPO, a merger, it's not very important. But if it's something said by RBI, SEBI, any news on the economy, that inflation trends or something like that, that is very important. So again, in business section, you have to read selectively. Then after that comes sports and life section, which is not important. Okay. So this is how I started filtering out content from The Hindu. And this was the only newspaper I followed. Then in August, I picked up I had decided that now I am done with the strategy notes and I have developed the habit of reading newspaper in 45 minutes. Now I have to start with the basic books, which are the NCERTs. So the first set of NCERTs which I decided to pick was economics. Why? Because I had taken economics courses in my term 4 and it would help me supplement whatever I was studying there. So economics NCERTs class 11th and class 12th macroeconomics is very important. Both of them are very, very important because if you can see the concepts which are given in class 12 macroeconomics, it's directly asked in prelims, many of it. And for class 11, you have many topics like poverty, employment, and planning. So all of those form the base of your GS syllabus, GS3 especially. So that is how I started with NCERTs. Now what happened from September, October, November, December, there is this thing called student exchange program in Aiims. So I was a part of it and I had to go to Europe. So there I had a different schedule. I was not able to get the newspaper there. So whatever I could make from notes from the online The Hindu, I was able to do that. And I read the NCERTs, geography, history and political science, civics till 8th, and then after that political science. I read there, all of them in soft copy. But again, that time was a phase where my preparation suffered a bit, obviously because I was not here, I was traveling and all. Then I came back to India in December, around 12th December. So I decided, okay, the foundation has been sufficiently built till now. I have covered the preparation strategy, I have covered how to read the newspaper, I have made notes, and I am also done with all the basic NCERTs. I had not touched the 11th, 12th NCERTs till now, only 6 to 10. Economics I had touched, but for other subjects I had not touched because 6 to 10 NCERTs can be considered as light reading if once you have done your graduation. Because in graduation you read such lengthy and rigorous books that 6 to 10 NCERTs is easier and faster to read. So 11, 12 NCERTs I had taken them very seriously, whether it be geography, whether it be history, political science as well, and sociology and art and culture. So these NCERTs I had left, 6 to 10 I had completed. Then I had to make the decision that till now the foundation is there, I have to make it more serious. And I decided to join a test series for prelims. And I had few options in front of me and I chose insights for my test series. Why did I choose? Because their program was designed in such a way where in every test, one test used to happen every week and every test used to have a mixed bag syllabus. So there might be 2 chapters of history, 2 chapters of political science, 1 week's current affairs and maybe some map topic or some month's yojana or some report. So I am a person who always likes to study many things but little bit of each rather than studying one thing too deeply. All other tests which I could see at that time, they used to cover entire polity in one test, entire geography in one test. So that did not interest me too much. But this one had a mixed bag and I really liked it and I joined it then. So I joined the test, I gave my first test on 24th December 2017, okay. That means I started studying around 15 to 16 December. But all these test series, start in June itself. So I had a 6-month backlog. I was not able to give the test from June to December. Now, I could have worried about the backlog then, that how am I going to cover this, it's too much, I could have crumbled under the pressure. But at that time I chose to keep it aside. No, I'll not think about it right now. I will give those tests which are in front of me. And I started with a test on 24th December. And that was my last term at IIM Indore. So I had my coursework as well. So I had to balance both. So I used to give one test on Sunday. I used to study for it from Monday to Saturday. So I tried to complete the entire syllabus from Monday to Friday, and Saturday I used to keep to revise the entire week's syllabus. So if I had made notes of the Hindu for a week, I used to revise the entire notes. If I had made notes from Insight's current affairs blogs, I used to revise that on Saturday. And then if suppose the chapters which had been covered, I used to make notes out of Lakshmikant as well, so I used to revise that again on Saturday. So Monday to Friday was spent for studying and Saturday was for revising. Sunday morning I used to give a test, and the first test I gave for prelims mocks, I got 82 and had some idea that till 2016 the cutoff was 116 and 17 the cutoff was 105.34. So I knew that if I was able to get 120 and above in prelims, that means a sure shot qualification for mains. And I was at 82, which is around 40 marks short of my target. So next test I gave, again in the next week I got 85, then 89. I was stuck in the below 100 range. And for 1 month, till 26th January, I was below 100. On 26th January, for the first time I touched 100. Then, and I used to keep a note of my scores. So I used to write how much I got in that test, what is the number of what is the total number of questions I attempted, how many I got correct, how many I got incorrect. And I used to analyze the questions I did not attempt and the ones I got wrong very seriously. So what does analysis mean? Suppose if you got 80 marks in a test, that means you have not got 120 marks. Then there are some questions where you were sure that one of the options is not correct, 3 might be correct. Then the most tricky ones are those where you are sure about 2 options not being correct and 2 of them being correct. And many a times it happens that we tend to mark the wrong ones and then we miss out qualification because of that. That is a very common thing, even I have faced it. So while attempting itself, I used to write in front of the question that which category does the question fall into. So T1 means I was sure of eliminating one option, T2 means sure of eliminating 2 optionals, and T3 means that I was sure of the answer. So then I try to analyze that whether my number of T3s is increasing or not, because T3s are sure shot marks. You will get them correct even if you on the day of prelims you have not slept well, you are tired, even then you can get the T3s correct. So my entire aim was to first aim for me in this test series was to transfer the T1 and T2s to the T3s. Okay, and the second aim for me was to find a sweet spot for attempt. You might have heard that some people attempt 97, 98 questions out of 100. Some people attempt only 80 and still they qualify. So I experimented with that in the initial few mocks, and then I realized after some time, about 2-3 months, that my sweet spot is 90. If I'm attempting 90 questions, if I'm leaving out 10, then that is the maximum possible marks I'm getting. After that, if I attempt more, I start getting into the negative zone. Okay. So 26th January I touched 100 for the first time, and then the last mock which I gave in college was I think on 24th February, and there I got 140, and in between this during February I had touched 100 in each of the mocks. So I knew that okay, I have got the knack of attempting mocks, how to get a good score. Now I have to maintain this continuously, and I always used to track my marks in an Excel sheet. Fine. So at the end of February, I left my college, I came to home, and there onwards I only prepared at home. I did not go to any other city, I did not stay anywhere else. I prepared from home itself. And now the thing which confronted me was that till now I was giving one test every Sunday, and yet there was a 6-month backlog which I had talked about, June to December. So now I changed my routine. Now every week I used to give 3 mocks. Okay. So I used to study 1 week syllabus on Monday because I was at home and I had nothing else to do. So on Monday I used to read the entire week's current affairs. That might be last year June's current affairs, because I'm clearing backlogs right now. So entire week's current affairs I'm reading, entire week's syllabus I'm reading on Monday, Tuesday morning I'm revising, Tuesday afternoon I'm giving the test, and Tuesday evening night I'm analyzing that test. Then again Wednesday same routine as Monday, Thursday another mock. So 3 mocks per week. And I had calculated that if I follow this routine, I would be able to clear all my backlogs by 15th April. So from 1st March to 15th April, I was clearing all the backlogs and simultaneously giving all the mocks. And during this time, my average score was around 120. Okay. And once 15th April came, then there was 1.5 months remaining for prelims. Now I had to revise everything. And by the end of 31st May or 1st June, I think I had attempted 49 mocks. And my average score remained around that 120 range. And the book list which I followed was the same which Insights used to give for their so when they give the syllabus for a test, they also mention the sources. So I stuck to those sources. So in history, everybody follows Spectrum, but since they did not mention Spectrum, I was never able to read Spectrum. So I read Bipin Chandra's India's Struggle for Independence, but I read that more as a novel to understand the basic gist. And then they had mentioned Tamil Nadu board history textbook. So I made notes from that. Then in geography, I covered NCRTs and a selective reading from GC Leong. Okay, and economics survey I did in very much depth. Economic survey is a fantastic document if you make notes for prelims, and so you have to make 2 sets of notes from the economic survey. One for prelims, one for mains. Prelims will have very small things like what is Baltic Index, so it is a measure of trade, things like that which might be asked like in prelims. And for mains, so there was this box in economic survey on logistics industry in India. So you can write that what are the challenges, what are the issues, what are the solutions, and that set of notes can be for mains. So economic survey you have to do very properly twice, one for prelims, one for mains. Okay, and then political science, I read Lakshmikant, of course. It's very important, each and every word of that is important. And NCRTs I had followed. Then for art and culture, I was not able to read Nitin Singhania sir's book. I only read that NCRT. And one more thing which I did was that instead of focusing too much on increasing my sources, I used to study from the mistakes I made in mocks. So suppose if there is a question which was suppose it was mentioned in Spectrum and not in any other book, and since I had not read Spectrum, I made a mistake in the mock. Then I used to note it down in my history notes that okay, this thing was there. I have not studied it from my sources. Fine, I'll add it to my notes. So my preparation for prelims was a reverse kind of thing. I learned from my mistakes. Then from 15th April onwards, I again revised whatever I studied. I did not read any magazines till then, Yojana and all. But whatever I had studied till then, I kept on revising that many times. Then I appeared for prelims on 3rd of June. And after prelims, I calculated my scores from the various answer keys available, and I was getting in the range from 97 to 105. And based on 2017's trends, that was not a qualification score. So I had assumed on the very next day that I am not qualifying for prelims this year. I did not wait for the results to come. I did not feel depressed or sad that okay, fine, I'm not even able to clear prelims, what will I do? I just assumed that okay, I am not clearing prelims, game over, now let's start the new thing. So I took a break for 2-3 days, and then I started studying ethics, because I had till now had become bored of studying the same polity, geography, history, so I wanted to change. And then I started with ethics. So in ethics, the first thing which I did was, there's this video series on YouTube called What is Justice? It's a Harvard video series, and I started watching one episode per day, just like a TV series. So I used to listen to it very properly, and that kind of gives you a feel of how you have to orient yourself while answering ethics questions. Okay, and there were 12 episodes, so I saw them in one each in 12 days, and then I bought the book called Lexicon. and I made very detailed notes out of lexicon. I read it once, then I read it again twice, and when I was reading it twice, I started making notes out of it. And I know that lexicon itself is a kind of notes, it's given in very much gist, but I used to write only the keywords out of it. And I used to make the notes in a form which is more like a question answer thing, because ultimately you have to answer questions. Okay, and you might ask that when did I actually start answer writing practice, right? Many people have this confusion, should we do this before prelims or should we do this after mains? So from 15th March onwards, I had been doing 2 questions of secure, inside secure each day. That was the only answer writing practice I did. So I used to see the question, I used to read the article which was linked to it, and then I used to make a very rough sort of notes, and then I used to memorize it, and then I used to write the answer properly. So initially my format was not coming good at all. There was no introduction, body, conclusion. It was totally messed up. But in a week or 10 days, I was able to get the hang of answer writing. Okay, and now I was studying ethics, and at the same time I also started my political science preparation. So before prelims, if you are familiar with the PSIR syllabus, so 1B is related to Indian government and politics, and 2B is related to international relations. So these topics are also covered in prelims. So I had ordered the correspondence course notes from Shubhra Ranjan ma'am. I just went through her notes, and it's only for 1B and 2B, because these are also common with prelims, and it helped me in answering prelim questions as well, because in our time 2018 many IR questions were also there. Okay, and 1A and 2A of political science I had not touched till then, but this I started alongside ethics as well, because ethics, if you see, you have to study many thinkers. You need to know about Immanuel Kant and Mahatma Gandhi, and these are also covered in your PSIR 1A syllabus. So since I studied both of them together, I could use points of one topic in the other. So I kind of correlated them. Then this is what I was doing till around 14th July when the prelims results came, and I was able to make it. Later I got to know that my marks was 102.66 and the cutoff was 98. So the cutoff decreased, and then I got in. That's what happened then. And I had also joined, so I told you that I had assumed that I'm not clearing 2018 prelims. So I thought that okay, fine, I'll join the test series for mains 2019. And I joined Forum IAS's MGP program for 2019. And the initial tests were in world history, post-independence India, and 4 tests were covered this topic, which is not there in prelims. And then next 4 tests were based on ethics. So I had completed my ethics syllabus till around 14-15 July, and from August onwards I answered all the test series of Forum related to ethics. So it was done in a very systematic manner. I studied ethics till 15 July. I revised ethics from 16 to 1st August, and then entire August every week I had 1 test of ethics. Okay, and apart from that, now I got to know that I'll be writing mains on 14th July, and my mains was to start on 28th September. So I had around 2.5 months time, which is very less, and till now I had not done too much of mains preparation. So I changed my way of, till now I used to write only random questions from inside, but now I try to make it more systematic, the secure program. Now every day, so if today I am writing on 1 question from GS1 and GS2, next day GS2, GS3, and then Wednesday GS3, GS1. So in 3 days I was able to write 2 GS1, 2 GS2, 2 GS3 answers in half a week, and then the other week half, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, again 2 questions. So in every week I was able to write 4 GS1, 4 GS2, 4 GS3, and on Sunday I used to revise all those answers. Okay, so most of my preparation was done in a reverse way, writing questions, whatever I knew I used to write. It's not that I used to study a lot of books and then write very good answers, wait for my answers writing skills to develop and then write very good answers. I used to write answers directly with whatever knowledge I had, and then I used to check with the suggested answer key which is given, and I used to find what are the points that I am missing, what are the concepts I have missed, how better can I present my answer, and these are skills I learned myself there. And also when I answered the MGP, I received some feedback on how my answers are, how it can be better presented, so that also helped me. And then this was a time I also picked up the second ARC reports, and then Niti Aayog's 3-year action agenda, and all of these had points directly related to the syllabus. So if you open ARC, you find entire section on RTI, and that is very much a part of syllabus. It's both in GS2 as well as GS4. So I made notes out of that. Then if you see that Niti Aayog's document, you will find topics like coastal economic zones, which can be asked anytime, which is a solution to many problems which are asked. So I made very crisp notes out of all these. And one more thing that I did then was that you can find the answer booklets of previous year's toppers on many websites. So I used to download them, because again I had joined test series for 2019 and I was to write mains for 2018. So the portions which would be covered before my mains was very less. It was only 30 to 40%. Ethics would be covered, world history would be covered, post-independence India, society, entire society, and security. These are the portions that would be covered before my mains. All other economy, history, geography would be covered after mains. So for those portions which were to be covered after mains, what I did, I downloaded those topper answer booklets. I saw what question is there in that sheet. I covered the answer. I wrote the answer myself with whatever limited knowledge I had. See, every day I was reading the newspaper. So some knowledge I was developing every day. I used to write whatever I knew, and then I used to read what the topper has written. And then I used to compare that what are the points that I'm missing out on, how it can be better presented. And I use a lot of shapes in my answer writing. So I used to make a lot of circles, triangles, diagonal, rectangles, and so on. And that is something I learned there. And yes, so till 15th September, I was able to complete, I won't say I was able to complete the syllabus, but I would say that I was able to write a lot of answers. And I had an entire question bank kind of thing with me, both for GS and for my optional. So in my optional, what I did was that I had read the notes, I had downloaded tests. So Subhrayanjan ma'am shared a Google Drive with us where there were previous year's test series. And I am telling this for PSIR, but you can do this for most of the humanities optional, sociology, philosophy, and so on. That you download the previous year's test series, and then you'll see many questions are asked there. So I found a total of 160 questions, and I had 40 days. So every day I used to pick up 4 questions. I used to write answers from the sample answer key which was there, and then I used to memorize them like a class 8-9 student would. I memorized them by heart, and so that when I have to write the questions of political science, the points would just keep coming to me immediately. So I had a 160 question bank in political science, and similarly around 200-300 questions in GS covering all parts. Okay, and this was what I did till 15th September. Okay, now one thing I missed out is, and I think some people might be curious to know, that how does one select an optional? If you're writing for 2020 attempt, till now many of you might have not decided about your optional. So I'll just deviate a bit and help you with that. So my background was chemical engineering and management. So chemical engineering is not one of the subjects, but I could have gone for PCM because obviously I'm an engineer, or I could have gone for management, which is also one of the optionals. So why didn't I choose management optional is that because the kind of question, the way questions are asked in management optional is very different from the way which we are taught in IIMs. So IIMs is case-based learning method, and here there are many theory questions. So I would have to redo the entire thing, and I might get muddled up with the concepts I learned and the kind of answers I have to write. So I did not join it. And then there was another thing that management is a relatively new optional. So that much reading material and that much test series is not available right now. Maybe in future it will be. Then I shortlisted 2 other subjects which I might take. One was economics, one was political science. Then with economics, it's very technical. So I would have, like maths, in economics also you would need to spend a year studying all those theory. Unless if you have a BA, MA in economics, then it's fine. But if you're not done an economics program, you have to spend a lot of time in reading all those books and those concepts. But with political science, what I found was that I am generally very interested in reading international relations news. So that part, and I saw the previous year's questions. So I saw that in many of the questions, even if I have not studied the notes or if I have not written answers, I would be able to write something. Even with 10% knowledge, I would be able to write a decent answer, which would fetch me some marks. So that is the main criteria which I picked up political science. For some of you, that might happen with sociology. If you are very keen on following social issue, then you might feel that for sociology. Some of you might feel that for philosophy. So it's your call. You have to see the previous year's question paper. You have to see the syllabus and check whether it excites you or not. That whether writing an answer for that question will be an very mundane exercise for you, that I have to study and write this answer, or whether it will be something that you enjoy, that is something that it is there inside you and you want to convey it into the examiner. So this is what I felt with PSI, and then I chose that optional in February when we had to fill the form, and once I chose it, I decided to stick with it. I did not even think about any other optional. Okay, now coming back to 15th September, till now I had written many questions. Now I revised them till 20th. So 5 days I gave to revising. I read all the notes I had made, all the answers that I had written. Now, one thing about mains is that you might be doing a schedule that 28th we had essay, 29th GS1, GS2, 30th September GS3, GS4. And then 6th, 7th October we had the Indian language, English, and then optional, paper 1, paper 2, okay? So, mains is not just about a test of your knowledge, it is also a test of your stamina. Whether you can keep writing for that long, for so many hours, on a variety of topics. It's not that you're answering all questions on the same subject. So if you open a GS3 paper, you suddenly might be answering science, next topic might be economy, next topic might be security, next topic might be disaster management. So your mind has to move a lot. So what I did was from 21st, 22nd, 23rd September and 24th, 25th, 26th, I downloaded papers. And so on 21st September, I wrote an essay from 9 to 12 a.m. 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. In the same way, I would write mains in my center. So I closed my room, I had a table and chair, and I wrote in an examination mode. And then for the second half of the day, I revised GS1, GS2. Then on 22nd September, in the morning, I wrote GS1, 9 to 12, again GS2, 2 to 5. Same thing next day, 9 to 12 GS3, then 2 to 5 GS4, and in the middle, 12 to 2, I used to have my lunch from 12 to 1, and then for 1 to 2, for GS2 I did revise, but for GS4 I did not revise, or I used to relax a bit. And then again 2 to 5, like I would be writing in the exam center, I wrote the answers. Same thing again, so on 24th September I wrote the essay, same routine. Then 25th, 26th, again GS papers. So my body had become used to sitting for that time, from 9 to 12 and 2 to 5. And then 27th September I took a break, 20th onwards the main cycle was there. So that was the third time my body was repeating a cycle. So there is this thing called muscle memory. So that helped me with mains. Then there was a 1 week gap from 1st October to 5th October. So 1st October I did not study anything. I was very tired obviously after the weekend writing mains. But till now what had happened that I had been able to cover the syllabus of political science 1. So I am saying all this for political science, but you can treat it general for any option. I had covered the syllabus once. I had a question bank of 160 questions, and you would know that in humanities optionals only 38, you have to only answer 38 questions. 5, 10, and then 3, 3, 3, 9, 8, yeah, so 38 questions. So I know that if I have studied 160 questions, there is a huge chance that there will be some overlap with the 38 questions which are asked. And then I had followed my current affairs and IR especially. And then there was this document that ma'am had shared on the Google Drive, which had all these quotations. So you have to use a lot of quotes in political science. So if you follow the columns in the Hindu like Mr. Harshvi Pant, then Ms. Suhasini Haider, then again in Indian Express, Mr. C. Raja Mohan. So you can read the article and you will find very precise quotes which give a very diverse perspective on various issues. So I had written all those quotes and I revised that. And in that week I again revised the entire syllabus. So I was lucky to get the Evernote of a last year topper. He had got, I think, 112 or 117 rank, and he had shared it on his Quora blog. So I used those Evernote thing to revise again. But till now I had not written any answer of political science in a test mode. I had only written them to learn, but not in a test mode, like sitting in a room for 3 hours and writing political science. So I was very unsure about how I would attempt the actual exam. So on the day of political science, in the morning, I missed out on 2 questions, one 10 marker, one 15 marker. So I was a bit dejected that because of lack of writing practice, I was not able to complete the paper. So in the second paper, I decided that, okay, I will not focus on the writing very brilliant, very excellent answers, but I will my first priority will be to ensure that I complete the paper. So in the second paper of PSR, I was able to complete the paper in its entirety. Okay, and then that is 7th October where my mains ended. So that is the strategy I followed, and again mains results came on 20th December, so there was a lot of time in between. And when I finished my mains, I was satisfied with my GS and essay papers. I thought that yes, I had written decently in them, but for political science, especially because of that 25 marks which I had missed and because of lack of writing practice, I was not very sure that will I be able to get a decent marks, and I thought that if I am not able to qualify for interview, the reason would be political science. So then I joined a test series for political science. So I used to write test series till then, and I used to continue. I told you that I joined my mains test series for 2019. So it was continuing, and I used to write that. And till 20th December, I followed that routine. And then that day the results came of the mains, and then I had got an interview call. So then from there onwards, I started my interview preparation. I had not started my interview preparation before that. Now for my interview date was given 22nd February. So in the middle of that, I had to prepare, and I read newspapers. I checked through my DAF. So one more thing that I forgot to mention, it's very important that throughout the course of my preparation, I had prepared in complete isolation. I did not know any talks that were going on among the UPSC's aspirant circle. I had no clue what was going on. I had not talked to any senior before preparing that, okay, please help me, how should I prepare? I only relied on whatever was there online. Because if you see the videos on YouTube, the toppers are talking as if they're just talking directly to you. So that helped me a lot. And every day to relax myself, I used to take a 1 hour walk, and during that walk I used to plug in my earphones and listen to a topper talk, and that way I was able to get the hang of strategies. And I had not told any of my friends about my preparation. I only told my family and a few very close friends, but it was not a day-to-day detailed discussion, and none of them were themselves aspirants. They were all in different fields. So I think that helped me a lot, that not discussing my preparation, because there was no pressure on me. The only pressure which I took myself was that I have to get the best possible result in the first attempt, because I had already completed my post-graduation. I had withdrawn from placements, and that itself was a very big risk. And my friends were earning very well, and I was just at home and preparing. So I took this stress that I have to do the best possible result in my first attempt itself, and at least get into a service. Okay, so I had filled while filling the DAF, I did not have much knowledge. I only read Quora how to fill the DAF, and I think I filled it in a very detailed manner. And maybe that was not required. I think I should have been more general in the hobbies that I mentioned. Anyway, so whatever I mentioned there, I prepared it well. I prepared about my home state, which I had given as Bihar, and the state because that is my place of birth, and the state which I live in, which is Jharkhand. So I had to prepare both states. And then my first service preference was Indian Foreign Service. So I had to prepare about that, at why am I opting for this. And I had to prepare a convincing answer, and which was not too difficult for me, because that is the service which I had always hoped for. And after that, I also prepared the issues which were there. So I used to watch Rajya Sabha TV. So the big picture, obviously, because it gives you an idea of the current issues as well as India's world, because again I knew that I might be asked about international issues. So these are the two programs that I followed. Apart from that, I went through my optional notes once, because there are times when you might get questions on your optional, especially the thing that I had chosen an optional which was entirely unrelated to my previous studies. So they might ask that why did you choose this, or tell me, might want to check my knowledge of that. So that is how I prepared. I gave the interview, and after the interview I had a feeling that it was just kind of above average, not too good, but okay, fine. Then I tried to start preparing for 2019, but I was not able to, and on 5th April the results came. So then I got my rank. So this is the entire preparation journey. Thank you. So if I have missed out anything, you can point that out and I will discuss it. Okay, essay, yeah, good. So essay, if you read the Hindu, there's this page where you have two editorials, and then 2 more guest editorials where there are columns, and then the page on the other side. So on Friday, I think you get left, right, center. So one day there is this entire article with a huge photograph in between. That is a very detailed report on one issue. So when preparing for essay, I used to read that, and I saw that they always used to start with a very interesting story. So it was so suppose if the question is if the essay topic is Indian economy and its challenges, so they would not start by listing out figures of Indian economy and then points wise challenges. No, it was always like XYZ person was in their village, they were doing this, and then they used to describe a challenge, and then they used to come to it. That is one thing I gained from there, that it's always better to start your essay with a story if it is relevant to the topic. If it's not relevant, then don't force fit a story into your essay. And if you are not able to start with the story, then you can go for a quote. Write a quote and then explain that quote and then start with your essay. Okay. Now I had attempted 2 essays there. One was related to the climate change one, alternative technologies for climate change, and in section B I had attempted some morality. What was the topic? Some morality is not. It was the first topic in section B. I'm not able to recall it, but basically the gist was that that whether the conventional knowledge that has been going on for centuries, is it relevant for today, or is it not? Something like that. Okay. So the first topic which I picked up was very factual. So there I gave out many statistics. So while preparing for GS, keep making note of all the important statistics. Especially if it's an economy related essay or an environment related essay, you have to mention these. And then I talked about the issues, what kind of problem is climate change, why is it a matter of concern, then what are the technologies available, which one of them would be very relevant to use right now, which one has some cost challenges associated with that, and that is how I wrote. But I think my first essay was kind of average, not very good, but not too bad either. So since it was so it was such a specific topic that I thought that I could not bring too much creativity into it. So in the second essay, I tried to make up for that. Okay. So what happened is that this year the section B, all of the topics were philosophical, and the second, third, and fourth topics were ones I could not understand at all, neither in English nor in Hindi. I couldn't understand at all, and I was very lucky that I wanted to write the first one, and that was the only one I understood. So there I talked about all the recent Supreme Court judgments which had come that time. So during our mains itself, in a week, I think 4 or 5 judgments were there, very important, and I mentioned that. And I talked about that how with time that conventional morality needs to change. But the very important thing about essays, especially philosophical essays, is that you always have to look at 2 sides of the coin. So if I have talked about that in the light of, say, this XYZ judgment, conventional morality is changing, then I also need to discuss how conventional morality is even useful. So there I gave the examples of Ashoka's Dhamma. I listed all the points in Dhamma. I said that this is a very old idea, about 2000-year-old idea. But if you see each of the topics, points, it's very relevant for today also, like caring for elders, respect and love for all, and all these things, caring of animals, these things are there. And I mentioned that this is conventional morality, it's still useful. Then I talked about Immanuel Kant. I talked about the ideas of Mahatma Gandhi, and I mentioned this as the other side of the coin. And at the end, I draw a small conclusion. So since my first essay was average, and I try to make up to the second essay. So this kind of situation you might encounter in your essay paper, that you might not be too sure about one topic, so write it in a very detailed manner, give out a lot of statistics. But if you are more sure about another topic, then use your entire creativity, and that means you have to manage your time that way. Okay. And yes, one more topic I did not touch, and it's very important, that how to actually attempt mains questions. That is very, very important to know, because of paucity of time. So the thing is that there are 20 questions in GS 1, 2, 3 and 14 in GS 4. So what I did for GS 1, 2, 3, that in the first hour, so you know that 11 to 20 questions are 15 markers, 1 to 10 is 10 markers. So in the first hour, I used to only look at, in 5 minutes are given for you to look at the paper. If you have attempted mains, you would know that 5 minutes you can go through the paper, and then after that you start writing. So there I used to mark at least 6 or 7 questions out of the 15 markers, which I know, which I have answered somewhere. So in GS3 there was a question related to left-wing extremism that had been asked in every test series everywhere. So it's like you know everything, you just write down the point. So questions like that, which is very common, I could identify 6 or 7 out of those in the 15 markers. I wrote that in 1 hour. Okay, so 1 hour is complete. Now in the next hour, I used to turn to the 10 markers. Now I have 3-4 questions of 15 markers which are unattempted, which I am not very confident about. So 10 markers, all the 10 questions I tried to attempt in 1 hour 15 minutes. Okay, so that means 75 minutes, 10 questions, so 7.5 minutes each. So there I did not make a distinction that I am very sure about this, I am not too sure about this, because in 10 markers obviously you get less writing space, only 2 pages. And if you fill in a lot of diagrams, charts and all, then you can easily fill the spaces. And make sure your handwriting is very neat and very legible, because as you know, the examiner has to correct many copies in a day. So if they come across a copy that is very pleasing to the eye, that pleases them as well, and it might earn, I am not too sure, but it might earn you extra marks. Okay, so in the next 1 hour 15 minutes, I used to complete all the 10 markers questions. So now I have attempted around 15 to 16 or 16 to 17 questions in total. Okay, now I have 45 minutes and I have the questions which I don't know very well. So there might be 4, there might be 3. Suppose there are 4 questions, so I have around 10-12 minutes in each. Now I can, and I know very less about that. So there was this question about disaster management this year. You have to compare 2 different conventions of disaster management, and I knew about the second one, Senkaku, I think. Sendai, but I did not know the first one. I think something with H, it was there. So I wrote all I knew about Senkaku, and then I tried to give out that why it is important. First I explained what is disaster management, what is disaster risk resilience. So, you know, I kind of, I didn't reach the point, but I kind of beat it around the bush. But then in a place where you are getting 0 marks, even 2-3 marks can make a huge difference. So that is what I used to do in the last 45 minutes, that attempt all those questions. But at times there were questions which I knew nothing about, like in GS1 I knew nothing about mantle plume, because honestly I had not studied geography in that much depth, especially physical geography. Economic geography I had done at least something, so I was able to write industrial corridors and all that, but this physical geography I had not touched at all apart from NCRT, so I did not know mantle plume. So I left that instead of writing some nonsense. Then in GS3 there was a question about Bose, Einstein. So I knew nothing about it. So instead of writing 1 paragraph about Albert Einstein, 1 paragraph of S.E. Bose, I decided to just S.N. Bose, I decided to just skip that, because then that might create a negative impression on the examiner. So at times you might be faced with situations where you have to leave out 1 question each. If you don't know nothing, it's better to leave that, but that should not be with more than 1 question. Okay, so you only have a leeway of 1 question. So this is GS 1, 2, 3. In GS2 I attempted all questions, and that reflects in my marks. I got 116 in GS2, and that is also because there was this effect from my optional PSIR that I was able to use some points from there. And this time GS2 surprised, I don't know about other aspirants, but it surprised me, because GS2 is always analytical, but this time they asked direct questions from Lakshmikant, that what is financial emergency, points related to that. So it kind of surprised me, but yes, I was able to recover from that setback in 1 or 2 minutes, and I tried to think that what did I study for prelims from Lakshmikant. Okay, now GS4. It is a very tricky paper to attempt. Okay, there I got 119 marks. So I think my strategy worked there. So that paper is divided into two sections. Section A is the theory question. Section B is the case studies. So in every mock, I experimented how should I go about it, and I realized that starting with the case studies is always better, because in the initial part of your, so GS4 is in the second half of your third day of writing exams. So as you go towards the end of GS4, your creativity will wear down. Okay, so initially pick up the cases. You have to be very creative there. Okay, and for case study, I will say the less you write, but the more precise points presented in the best possible way, the more marks you will get. So in the case, and the case studies are very, I would say they are very unique. They put you in the actual situation of an officer. This time there was one question related to IAS officer, one was there related to income tax, one was there related to IPS officer. So it kind of gives you, and then there were other ethical dilemmas. There was this question on Snowden, NSA surveillance, and also it covers a wide variety of areas, and it actually gives, so many times during preparation people tend to drift away from their topic at hand, and then used to imagine that if I am this officer, if I am that officer, I would do this work. So there actually you get to do that. You get to put yourself in the shoes of officers and decide on the situations in front of you. So in case studies, I think if you note this down, it will help you. So again, in case studies, there are two things. One is the most mundane things which you have to do in every case study, and one is the creative part. So mundane things, first of all, if you see the case, write a premise in capital. So premise means that you, in 2-3 lines, you explain what this case is about. So if this, there was that Snowden case study, which was the last question, just write that what was this, who is Edward Snowden, he was a former NSA employee who revealed the details of surveillance and so on. Just explain in premise, because that way the examiner knows that you know the gist of the case. Then after that, you can write the stakeholders. So don't write in bullet points, make a oval kind of thing and make arrows, and then in the oval write stakeholders, and then in the arrows you can write who all are there involved. So in this surveillance question, it might be the US government, governments of other countries, NSA, and things like that. Then again, you can write the ethical dilemmas involved. That you write point wise. So is it a case of conflict of interest? Is it because, and these things, where do they come from? They come from your syllabus. It's all mentioned there. So if you have memorized your ethics syllabus, you can straight away write points in that ethical dilemmas part. Okay. After that, so you have to check what type of question is it. Is it a merit versus demerit question, or is it one you have to give options? So if it's a merit demerit case, then write down all the options. Make a table. Making a table is the best way of presenting here in ethics. If you start writing stories, then it will bore the checker. So make a table, write the options, write the merits, write the demerits. In each merit, demerit, write 1-2 points that what can be the merits of this, what can be the demerits of this. And here you have to put yourself in the shoes of the officer or the situation which is given there. Then after that, possible course of action. So you can write that out of these, which is the most practical. So yeah, you're not supposed to take extreme situations. You have to list the extreme situations. So when you're listing the possible courses of action, you have to list every extreme. It might even sound absurd to you. It might be anything, but you have to list it down there, and then its demerits, you have to highlight that a bit. Okay, but in the possible course of action, you always have to take the middle path. You might have studied about middle path during your prelims preparation, so you have to take the middle path. It should be the most practical course of action. It should not be an extreme course of action. So that is the basic structure of the case study. Now creativity. So that depends on question to question. So there was this question in GS4 this year where there is a district and you are the SP of the district. And prohibition is there in that state, and people are making illegal liquor, and you have to suggest, and you have done raids, seizures, but it's not working. So you have to suggest an innovative way of how you can deviate the people from this illegal activity, but at the same time challenge it to a more useful end. So the issue there was that since before prohibition, liquor making was the livelihood of the villages there. So, and once this law came, then they are not able to make their livelihood through legal means, it became illegal. So there I thought and I suggested, at the time of writing, I was not sure how the examiner might think of it. I am still not sure, but based on my marks, I can say it might be good. I say that since they are making liquor, don't let them make it for consumption, but let them make it for some biofuels or something like that. So that their livelihood will also be kept safe, and then they will be able to do a legal activity, and which is also beneficial in terms of environment, in terms of economy. Then I listed down, it will save import costs, it will help be an alternative fuel and things like that. So that is a very innovative way which I had not prepared for. I just thought of it at the spot because of some knowledge I gained in GS3 or somewhere else. So in those questions you have to come up with some innovative ideas. Try to finish the case studies in 1 hour 30 minutes, at the max 1 hour 45 minutes. Okay, now you have 1 hour 15 minutes left, and then you have to answer the theory questions. So with theory questions, what happens is that you will see there will not be a repetition of questions, I would say, but there will be a repetition of concepts. The core concept would be remaining the same, but the way of asking the question might vary from year to year. So if they're asking a question on conflict of interest, they might use a quote this year, and next year they might directly ask what is conflict of interest. Next year they might present it in a different way, but the core concept remains the same. So while you're preparing from lexicon or any other source, just be thorough with all the core concepts which are there in the syllabus. So ethics in public administration, there is this report in ARC about ethics. So the recommendations of second ARC, they are very important. Keep those in mind. So if you have memorized these well, in the theory questions, even if you have a less time, only 1 hour 15 minutes, you will be able to write it down like a CBSE board's answer. Like you don't need to think much, keep on writing. And in between, if you're able to give few examples of people who, so there was this question about Warren Buffett's quote was there, that if you hire someone, not only is their skill or their intelligence very important, integrity is also important. So if you can think of some person who is very well qualified, but then they somewhere they lacked in integrity, and there was some case of unscrupulous behavior, and you can put it there in the example, that will directly hit at the core of the quote which was given. So you have to think of real life examples, and this will come from reading the editorials which you are reading. And some of these examples are also given in the ARC report. If you get time to read the entire report, you can note this down while you are reading. So that is how you should attempt GS4 paper. Anything else? Okay. Optional, I think if we do at the end, you have political science. Okay. So you want a general idea. Okay, so for optional, first of all, in every paper, 1A, 1B, there are 10 questions that are compulsory, 5 each, and then there are 6 sets of questions with 3 questions each. Out of that, either you can choose 2 from 1A and 1 from 1B, or 1 from 1A and 2 from 1B. I think this is the case with all humanities optionals, right? I am not sure about science or maths or commerce, I am not sure. So I am not suggesting for that, but for humanities, this is the structure. And what I used to do as first 5 minutes, I used to identify which one in the optional question, which one I would select. So this situation was there for me in PSI 2B, 2A, 2B, where in 2B I only knew one set. The rest 2 sets I did not know at all. So there was this question on Indian Council for Cultural Relations and some other questions. I had no clue about the answers, but there was one set which I knew all the answers of all the 3 questions. So that helped me. I got lucky there, and in 2A I knew 2 out of 3 well. I knew the third one also, but yes, 2 out of 3. So in the 5 minutes you have to select which ones you will answer, and once you have selected that, stick with that. In the midway of it, don't change the questions you want to attempt. That is very important, because if you change, then you are cutting the answers, you are wasting time. Not only you are wasting time, you are also making your answer sheets untidy. So in all my answer sheets, any subject, Even the qualifying papers, English and my language was Hindi. The English and Hindi, I never cut anything. So try to keep your answer sheets as tidy as possible. It should not appear that you are writing one question, then you think, okay, I don't know this much, I cut it and then I leave it. That means that you are not being, your decision making is somewhere not up to the mark, and this might form an impression in the mind of the examiner. So again, you have to remember that this civil services examination is not only a test of your knowledge, but many other things. And from these things, these qualities are reflected. So you have to be very sure. So in the 5 minutes which are given for you to read the questions, you select the question which you have to answer. Okay? And apart from that, the questions are compulsory to carry lesser marks. So allot time accordingly. It's very important that the marks and the time allotted should be proportional. It's not that you spend an hour on a 10-mark question, one 10-mark question you're spending an hour, and then 15 markers you're writing only in 2-3 minutes. It should not happen like that. Any other question? Fine. Okay. Can you repeat the question? Newspaper. Okay, so I follow the Hindu very religiously. Every day, every article, means every important article relevant to the syllabus. But when I was doing the secure answer writing practice, there were many articles there which were from Indian Express and Mint and ET also at times. So there I got some important articles from other newspapers which were very good and which helped me. But overall I followed the Hindu. Means 90% of it the Hindu, 10% selected articles from other newspapers which I had not selected, they had selected. Huh. 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 Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So yes, I've also seen the topper talks you mentioned. So what they do and what was different in my case is that when generally people start preparing for civil services, they allot at least 2-3 years for their preparation. That okay, this much time I will prepare, I'll read all the books, I'll attend all the classes and I will follow material or the standard books. So that is a bottom-up approach. You're covering the entire syllabus in books and notes, and then you start writing the questions. It works very well for many people. They get very good ranks. But I did not have the luxury of that much time. If you ask me that one line which summarizes your UPSC preparation is that I don't have time. So yeah, I even wrote on my study table in front of my study table, 2019 does not exist. So I have to do everything 2018 itself. So I had very less time. So I did a reverse approach, top bottom. I found questions from all sources. So online many websites have their own daily answer writing practice. I got questions from there. I got questions from toppers answer sheets. Anywhere I can get questions from. I collected questions. I became a question collector, and then I found answers to those, or if the sample answer had been shared, that was my preparation material. So that helped me in shortening my preparation time. And how did I understand that this works? I understood this from both my B.Tech and my MBA days, where many people used to study books and then, especially in MBA, it's theoretical. So people used to study books and then they used to write exams. Many of them got very good marks. But I always used to find out what questions are there. And from questions, I did the reverse. I used to study what was there in the questions. And for other things, I just used to be familiar with that. And that always worked for me well in my MBA program. And in the end, I was able to get a gold medal there also. So, so if Vision has uploaded a topper answer booklet, it's Vision's questions. If Forum has uploaded a topper answer booklet, it's Forum's questions. If I had joined Forum's main series, so I got some questions from there. Then Insights has this secure daily writing app. So there also they post questions. They also have secure compilation of every month. So I used to select any question from random and I used to write it. So I had a question bank with me. And this is just because I did not have enough time. If you have enough time and if you're more comfortable with so many people are not comfortable with that, I have not studied anything, how will I write answers? So if you're not comfortable with this and if you have time on your side, then it's fine. Then you can do the bottom-up approach, and it has worked well for many people. But if you are short on time like me, then you have to find other ways, and this was the way I found. Yes, I'll take that question. Yes. 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 Okay. Okay, so case studies framework I had just discussed. Premise, stakeholders, ethical dilemmas involved, options or alternatives available. If it mentions in the question you have to write merits, demerits, then write merit, demerits. If it's not there in the question, if it does not say that you have to write merit, demerits, don't write merit, demerits. Instead write. So I presented it in a way. I used to make a circle. This is the possible course of action. An arrow, a box, justification. If it's not merit, demerits, write justification and give it. And then after that, possible course of action, one course of action, which will be the middle path, will not be an extreme way. That's it. That is the structure I followed in every case study. And theory, you have to be a bit creative. So there was a question this time of a difference between code of ethics and code of conduct. Something like that was there. So there I made a table. Somewhere you have to write a quote, explain a quote. Then you give example. Use as many shapes as possible. Hexagon. I made a lot of benzene rings in my answer sheets. So use as many shapes as possible. Make charts. So if it's a question on economy, if it's a question on trends, then show that trend. It helps. It creates a very good impression. In ethics also you can innovate. Like if it's something, so there was this question I encountered in one of my mocks that what are the ethical concerns with artificial intelligence? So again I made a circle, the possible issues, then a rectangle, the possible solutions to that, and things like that. So you have to innovate in every question. Yes, you were. Okay, that's a good question. So, so generally all the questions in mains follows an IBC format: introduction, body, conclusion. But that's very general. That's just the surface. If you take topic wise, the IBC is radically different. So if it's a polity question, the introduction should be an article of the Constitution or a Supreme Court or High Court judgment. Just start like that. Body will be relevant to the question. So many people have asked me, how do you manage the body of the answer, which is a question which many people encounter. So when you're reading the question, you will come across many keywords. So from those keywords, you can find subheadings for your body. So what are the differences? Pick up that differences word. That is one subheading. So you can figure out subheadings from the question. And conclusion, again, it has to be again related to the topic. So if it's a polity thing, you might say that as per second ARC, this thing is a suggestion and this might be a good course of action. If it's an economy question, your introduction should have an economic data point. It might be something that the RBI might have said. It might be something you read in the economic survey. And always write these things in bold. Economic survey, huge bold letters. So in both my GS and my political science answer sheets, especially in political science, when I had to write the name of a thinker, I ensured that suppose if my entire text is written in suppose 12 font size, MS Word 12, then my thinker name would be in 16 or 18. So if the examiner opens the answer sheet, he says, okay, so this topic is there, this thinker is quoted there. That means it's relevant to the question, and probably that is where I scored the mark. So if you're writing economic survey, so there was a topic related to pendency in judicial in last year's economic survey. So if it's a question about that, then write in the economic survey in huge font. So they know that you have read the economic survey, you are familiar with the topic. So introduction, you do that. In conclusion, again, in economy, you can, as per Niti Ayog's 3-year action agenda report, this can be a possible solution, and this might be, so it should always be forward looking and it should always be positive in tone. Okay, if you're taking history, a static question of history, so there it's recommended that the introduction should, suppose it's an event like say non-cooperation movement. If it's an event like non-cooperation movement, introduction should be one step backwards. What was happening is from 1916 to 1918. So there was Rowlatt Satyagraha, Jallianwala Bagh, these things. Then body should be entirely about non-cooperation movement, 1920-21. Then conclusion could be Chauri Chaura, could be what happened after that. So in history, body is the event, introduction is one step backwards, to conclusion is one step forward, because it's a static answer. Then economy I talked, polity I've talked, geography and all, you can start with definition, that okay, this is this feature. Suppose there was a question, industrial corridors, what is industrial corridors? In the introduction, body you can always make, if the question allows you to make a map of our country, make the map of our country. Don't even think about, don't hesitate, just make a map. Industrial corridor, make a map, draw the industrial corridors. That's like half the work done, because they know what you're talking about. Okay, and a conclusion, again, it can be how industrial corridors can be helpful. Okay, in IR questions, IR not PSIR but GS2 IR. Whenever I used to see a question, once I saw a question on Indo-Pacific, I just read the question, I wrote 1-2 lines in introduction, what is Indo-Pacific? I drew the entire Indo-Pacific region, entire China, Japan, till India, Sri Lanka, Australia, Indonesia. I just drew, I made a box, I mapped Indian Ocean, Pacific Ocean. So in IR, whenever you're answering a question, it means they should know what part of the world is being talked about. That they want you to know which part of the world is being talked about. So if it, even in history at times, if it's a question on Korean War, armistice, draw both the Koreas. So you have to show that you know what they're asking about.
While your preparation,
Yes.
do you prepare any magazines like weekly or monthly magazines?
Okay. Good question. So this people ask me many times that should one regularly follow Yojana, and mostly Yojana, Kurukshetra, some people also follow that. For me, what happened is that I did subscribe to Yojana. It was there with me, but I selectively read articles. So suppose this month's Yojana is on infrastructure. And if there is a very good article on port sector, I would definitely read it and make notes. But if it's the article is 25th anniversary celebration of this, so I could skip it. So again, for Yojana and every magazine, you have to use it very selectively. But if it's the economic survey, if it's any document produced by Niti Aayog, you have to read it in and out and make notes, because you can't come back to it again and again. Economic survey, again I said make 2 sets of notes. Read the economic survey 3 times. First time read it as a storybook, because it's very interesting. I have not read this year's one, but the previous one which I read and the one before that, they were very, very interesting. And I plan to go home and I plan to download and get a printout of this one, and then I will read this. Even though I am not attempting mains this year, but I will read it because it's so much fun to read economic survey. So read it first as a storybook novel kind of thing, a non-fiction novel. Read it, understand the issues, what areas. So this year I think there's an article on data. It's a very upcoming area. And last year also there was a question related to Sri Krishna committee report on data protection bill. So that was the legal aspects. This year you might be asked some other aspect of data. But it's a very in the news topic. So once you've read it like a non-fiction novel, then again second time you make a prelims notes. So find all those small things like Baltic Index. It's a thing which is not often used in the parlance. So it is a representation of how much trade is going on and things like that. So you make a note there. Any other such statistic, any other trend that you are seeing, that can be a direct question. And just before the prelims, many websites have this economic survey questions, budget questions. So attempt those MCQs as well. So that from that you'll know that what extent is your prelims related understanding. So are you thorough with all the small data points? And then the third time you read economic survey, make a mains kind of notes. So logistics, there was a box on logistics. There might be a box on, say, labor laws in India. There might be a box on, say, innovative ways to tackle air pollution. Make notes. And that is the third time you're reading economic survey. Same can go for that 3-year action agenda. I think Niti Aayog has released one more document this year. It's another document. I'm not able to recall the name. I think it has a vision for 2022. So read that document. Again, you'll find many topics which are related to mains. So you make notes out of that in a mains format. So issues, challenges, solutions, and so on. Any other? Yes?
So, people are suggesting that start preparation of mains first of all until December you have to prepare the mains, and later on from January you can start
Okay.
Is that a correct strategy?
Okay.
Or do you suggest anything?
Okay. Yes. So this is one issue I did not encounter, but I have heard many people face this. Because my serious preparation started from December. As I told you, June, July, August was spent in strategizing about the exam and getting myself oriented towards this. Then for some months I was not here and I was not able to study. Only a bit of NCERT, and I again came back and I joined test series directly for prelims. So what I did was, even though I was writing prelims test series, from 15th March onwards, I started following Insight Secure. So I used to pick any 2 questions at random of the day. I used to read the article attached. So with every question there is an article attached to it. I used to read the article. I used to make rough notes in a diary. Then I used to read it or memorize it. If it's a very factual thing, I used to memorize it. If it's something which is analytical, I can understand, I used to understand it. And then I used to take that question and again write the answer after some time in an examination mode. So in the initial days, the kind of answers I wrote was hopeless. Like there was no format to it. It was very bad. When I see now, I am quite embarrassed looking at it. But over time, if in a month, around 15th April, my answers started fitting the IBC mode. And from 15th April to 15th May, they started becoming relevant to the question. So 1 month fitting the IBC mode, 2nd month becoming relevant to the question. 15th May I stopped it and I focused only on prelims. And then after mains, after prelims, I joined the test series. And then there, when I wrote questions, I got it checked, and then I got feedback, and then I understood that I learned while the process. But if you start preparation now, and if you are looking at 2020, then I would say that the first thing you do is you complete your optional, especially if it's a more static, like philosophy. It's mostly static. Or if it's a more static optional, complete it first, but never stop reading the newspaper. So reading newspaper is a daily habit. I stopped reading newspapers on 22nd February of my interview day, but till then you have to read newspapers every day. Okay, and so if you have a year, first complete your optional, divided paper wise. So paper 1A, paper month, paper 2B1. So if you take July, 1A, June, August 1B, September 2A, October 2B, November entire revision. Then December onwards, you are on the same track. What you told me. In mains, optional. GS of mains, it's better you start from January because see your mains will be in September, October. So last year's topics become a bit, I won't say totally outdated, but it might become a bit outdated. And preference would be given to things that happen in January to August of that year. So it's better to study the things which are more recent. But at times when you are preparing for mains after your prelims, go back to compilation of questions of last year and randomly pick questions which you think is still relevant to today. So suppose there is a bill which was being discussed in 2017 and which was passed in 2018. So some part of that bill would be a point of discussion in 2017, but by 2018 it has already become a law and it's over. That point of discussion is over. So it's not relevant anymore. So similarly, you have to filter out things from before January. But January onwards, you can follow. And mains preparation is mostly from your newspaper and some static portion. Again, yes, GS1, thanks for reminding us, GS1 very important thing. If you see GS1, it has geography, art and culture, history and society. So if you see 50% of that paper is society. But I have seen many aspirants who gave the exam at the same time as me and who are giving now, that they find history, geography to be very exciting and they start reading huge books on that. But according to my understanding, history and geography and a bit of art and culture, they have a very low ROI. The more you read, the more you get lost in them, and the probability of a question. So if you have studied, suppose Dravida versus Nagara architecture in very much depth, but the probability of that question being asked is quite less because you have many other topics in art and culture. But if you see the syllabus of society, diversity of India, communalism, regionalism, secularism, every year there is a question in some way or the other that is asked from these parts: poverty, population, women's issues. So if you make a static kind of notes on these issues, your ROI will be very high because these topics are very limited. The questions have, the concepts have been repeated again and again, and it is 50% of the paper. So in GS1, I would say do society very, very well. Ensure that you are thorough with society. You are not missing any question of society. And then history, geography, art and culture, cover the basic things. You can always, from the test series, you know what are the most important parts will be asked. So in history, Indian freedom movement is the most important. So obviously you'll do that in more depth. These days, world history is not coming that much. In our year, there was a very indirectly related question to indentured laborers in Caribbean. So that was a tangential question on world history. Apart from that, there was no direct question on world history. And that has been the trend. So you should not waste a month studying Renaissance and Industrial Revolution. It won't help you. So you have to find out from the previous year's questions which areas are most suitable to consider, and that is most relevant to GS1. GS2, GS3, you will see that all the topics have a similar coverage. So if this disaster management has 1 or 2 questions, it will always have 1 or 2 questions. If environment has 2 or 3 questions, it will always have 2 or 3 questions. That won't change. But in GS1, you can see that there's a lot of randomness in history, geography and art and culture, but society is more or less the same. And it's the same paper. So why not focus more on society? Okay. So of all my books, NCRTs, I did not make any notes. 6 to 10, I just had a light reading to understand, okay, these are the areas I need to focus on. 11th, 12th, again, I did not make any notes of NCRTs. I used to just highlight. But if you select standard books, so in geography, I made selective notes out of G.C. Leong. So there are different types of terrains which are described and their main crops which are cultivated there. So any year there might be a question on characteristics of cotton cultivation. So I made that kind of notes. Then polity, I made notes out of Lakshmikant. Many people recommend that there is no need to make notes. So my notes was more like I used to learn. So if I have studied all the points of article 358, then I used to close Lakshmikant and I used to write them. So more than notes, it was more writing practice for me. Same, that was for polity. Economy, economic survey, I made detailed notes. NCRT, I read. So economy, what the issue with me was that since I had taken many economic subjects during my MBA, so I had studied much more advanced things. So I think some of you might be economics honors students. Are there? No one. Okay. So there are many advanced things which are taught there, and one has to restrict themselves to being a generalist here. So in economics, mostly I focused on the current issues, economic issues, rather than very core concepts of economy. And apart from that, art and culture, I didn't make notes because it's something that you tend to forget because so much is there. In art and culture, I saw a topper answer booklet where he had made diagrams. So if it's a question on Dravida and Nagara architecture, even though he wrote all the points, you also made the diagram which explained the difference. So I never knew that one could make diagrams in art and culture also. I was making diagrams in other areas. So that is one innovative thing I found. And then what else is there? IR, I did not make notes because it was part of my optional. But I made notes from the newspaper. So if any topic which I made notes in from the newspaper was being covered in the GS question, automatically I had got notes for that. Yes, sociology, I think I read the NCRT, but I did not make notes. Security, I found a very good book which was recommended to me in my mains test series. It's by an IPS officer, I think Ashok Singh, yes. So that book had very precise explanation of all the security issues, and that was the first time in my life I was reading those topics, and I found it very interesting. So I made notes not just out of necessity but also out of interest because it had very detailed problems analysis, solutions. So I made notes out of that. Ethics, I made notes out of lexicon. And whenever I answered any, so I told you that many times I used to download topper booklets and I used to attempt all 20 questions. Then I used to check my answer with the answer written by the topper. And I used to mark myself also. So if out of, in the 10 markers and in the 15 markers, if I thought that if I calculated I was getting less than 50%. So if I was getting 5 or below in the 10 markers, 7.5 or below in the 15 markers, I would find that topic and I would make notes on that. So suppose there is a question on, say, center-state relations, and suppose I wrote it in my own words, and then I compared with the topper, and my answer was pathetic compared to the topper. So I would make a very good notes on center-state relations. I would put in recommendations from Punchi Commission and other issues that are there, like Finance Commission and all these. And so I made notes selectively where I thought that my understanding of the issue is less. But suppose if it's an IR question or India-Israel relations, and from my reading of the newspaper and from my optional studies, I am quite confident about what to write, how to present it, and then I check with the topper answer booklet and I see that more or less I am writing the same thing. And if I give myself suppose 9 out of 15, then that means I have a hold of that topic and I don't make notes on that. Yes. So again, I'll repeat the same thing. I had very less time for UPSC preparation. So I had the correspondent course notes of Subramanian ma'am. I had the previous year's test series, and I had some topper answer booklets of political science also. And then I told you I got a topper's Evernote on Quora. So that was my revision material, and my study material was the notes. However, if I had got more time, I might have read standard books like O.P. Gauba for political theory, then Global Politics by Andrew Haywood for 2A paper. For 2B, I did read selectively Does the Elephant Dance by David Malone. Only few topics like India-Russia relations, India-China, but it was selective. But yes, if I had got more time for political science, I might have read in more depth. But again, since I had less time, I did not. That means it can be done also without reading. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, so I did not get good marks in interview, 143. So I would not advise you to follow my strategy as a way to prepare, but you can follow my strategy as how not to prepare. Okay, so 20th December the results came, and so till my entire preparation I was preparing from my hometown Ranchi, but then in a week in January I went to Karol Bagh in Delhi. I stayed there for some time and I gave 9-10 mocks, and basically the two major feedbacks that I got there was first of all that they told me that my knowledge was of my home state and the state where I live in was very shallow and superficial. So that was a problem which was very peculiar to me, which might not be there for everybody else, because the thing is that I had lived in Bihar for very short 2-3 years of my childhood. Then I had spent a lot of time abroad, and then I came to India in 2006, and for 5 years I was in Jharkhand, in Ranchi, and then again I left for studies. So I have lived in Pilani, Rajasthan, I've lived in Indore, Madhya Pradesh, I've lived in Hyderabad, I've lived in Bangalore, so I've traveled a lot. So because of this, the time I spent on the ground in my state was very less. So I did not have a very good knowledge of my own region. Whatever knowledge I had was very textbookish, very bookish from the local newspapers, but probably that was not enough. So in many mocks they asked me a question that what is the kilometers of road that is made in every day in Jharkhand? And I was like, I don't know this. I have no idea. But if you have studied, if you have lived in your state for a very long time, if you know your grassroots level issues very well, that will not be a problem for you. And especially if your first preference is IAS, which is for most of the people, then you have to be very thorough with your home state. Like you should know it in and out. They can ask anything about your home state, and there's a good chance that one of them might be from your home state, which happened to me in my interview, and probably He asked me like, okay, this your place of birth, it has forts. So, but forts in Rajasthan are renovated. Why is the forts in Bihar not being renovated to make as a resort? And I gave some general answer, but the actual answer was that since it's a university now, so it can't be renovated. I did not know that. So take care of these things. That was the first feedback I was, that my knowledge of my home state and the state where I live is very superficial. The second thing which I think was the problem, that was my DAF was too detailed. So one should write reading books. I wrote reading non-fiction, especially history. Then one should write traveling as a hobby. I wrote traveling and I described what kind of travels I had done. Then one should write watching movies. I described exactly what kind of movies I like. So I think that worked against me. So you can avoid that. And my friends also told me that if possible, if your hobbies can be a bit well-rounded, like if you have some outdoor stuff mixed with indoor stuff, sports and all mixed with reading and all, that's a very good combination. Unfortunately, I did not have any sports-related things on my hobby list. So that DAF filling and knowledge of home state and state where I live in hurt me the most in my interview. Okay, and I'll come to your question. Yes, demotivation was there. First time I was hit with demotivation was when I got 82 in my first mock. So then I decided that okay, I'll not worry about how much I have got, but I'll worry about the 120 marks I have not got, and I'll start analysis of the mocks, and which was done very rigorously. So instead of worrying about the scores I'm getting, I was focusing more on the score which I was not, the portion which I was not getting. And I used to close my mind and just analyze. And that itself takes a long time. If you give a prelims mock and if you do analysis, that itself will take 3-4 hours. So that time my mind was occupied. So there I beat demotivation once. Then the second time I beat demotivation was, so after prelims I had assumed that I'm not clearing. Then I got a bit demotivated that until then I had not written 2019 does not exist. That I wrote after prelims results. So till then I assumed that I am not giving this year, and I joined test series for 2019. That okay, fine. If I'm not clearing this prelims, I'll study in advance for 2019. So always have a backup plan in mind. Okay. And third time was when I was answering test series of GS. I think sometime around end July or August first week. So as I told you, I was preparing in complete isolation. I had no contact with any other aspirant. I did not know what was going on at all. So I was writing tests, and there was a 1 week, 2 week delay in the answer sheets coming to me after being checked. So I did not know how I was performing. I was feeling that I am writing tests. I don't know how good the answers are. But after initial few days, the answer script. So the thing is that I had joined MGP 2019, and there was also an MGP 2018 going on. So obviously they would give priority to the people who are writing 2018. So those were probably being checked first, and then ours were being checked. But once ours started being checked, and I saw that my marks were coming, my rank, they used to give rank for the main, it was coming within top 10 of all the students. Then I said, okay, fine, then I'm on the right path. So the best way of beating when you're feeling demotivated is that write mocks. Prelims, you get instant results. You have to set yourself a target at 120. If you achieve 120, next time 130. If you achieve 130, next time 140, and so on. Mains, yes, the results did not come that immediately because obviously they'll need time to check. But again, if you are preparing in a group, if you have peers, you can compare what marks you're getting. This time, suppose in polity, someone might have done better than you because they might have had BA political science. But if you have BA economics, next time you can do well, and then you can learn from each other. So discussing might help. Yeah, and sticking to your strategy is very important. And for relaxation, I used to take a walk every day. I did not watch any movies or such, which is my hobby. I did not watch any TV. I used to see short 5-6 minute skit videos on YouTube, which were comedy videos. There are a lot of them that is new. So that was the only kind of thing which I used to do to beat stress. That's it. There was a question from the back. Pardon? Interview questions. Okay. So since I had PSIR, they asked me about the Venezuela crisis. They asked me about Afghanistan issue because that was very news that time. Then they asked me, what have you learned from management that you can use in your desired service. They asked me that, okay, you have done CFA, which is Chartered Financial Analyst Level 1. Why have you done this? What is this? Etc. etc. So basically, most of my questions were from DAF or my optional or home state. Yes. Yes. Yes, yes, true, true. Okay. Yes, that's a good question. So, see, when I told you at the beginning that since class 9, 10th only, I had wanted to do civil services. But obviously at that age, you're not eligible. Your eligibility starts from 21. And again at 18 years in 2011, I decided I'll prepare. But then there was a radical syllabus change in 2013. So I got derailed many times. Then I achieved the age of 21. I joined a job in Hyderabad itself. That was my first corporate experience. And during the 10 months of my job and 2 months of my summer internship during my MBA, so I started feeling this kind of alienation. Like I'm in a corporate job, I am doing something, I am making a PowerPoint presentation, I am making an Excel sheet, and then what is the end result of that? I could not feel it. Very few times in my job, like once I was working on a project that was to improve the efficiency of a certain process. There I went to the plant and then I understood the process. So for very few months, very few weeks in my entire work, I could relate to what I was doing. But for most of the time, I was not able to relate. I was not able to put myself in that, understand the fruits of my actions. So that is one thing that drew me away from corporate. Maybe if not UPSC, I might have gone into academia later on. But yes, UPSC was my first choice. Then the second thing is that my first preference is Indian Foreign Service, followed by Revenue Service Income Tax. So Foreign Service, again, diplomacy is something which interests me very much. I have spent my childhood abroad. I have done my internship in Thailand and a student exchange in Europe. So I really love interacting with people from different nationalities. And during my student exchange program, once our classroom had people from different nationalities and we were divided into teams. And each team of every country had to present their own culture. So I was leading the Indian team and I got the opportunity to talk about our culture, our everything, our food habits, our different art forms, and that is something I really enjoyed there. So these experiences really, and again, diplomacy is something which is most only done by the government. It's the sovereign function. So you can't experience that in private sector. You can experience living and traveling abroad in private sector, but the area of diplomacy is a sovereign function and you can only experience it by being in the government sector, and that too you have to give UPSC to get those very limited seats of IFS. Again, revenue service, what drew me towards that, since I had enjoyed finance during my MBA, and this also has a finance background. And during my preparation, I started so I have come from an engineering MBA background, but I started enjoying the legal language. And basically, IRS involves, it's a quasi-judicial function. A lot of it is about interpreting the laws, Income Tax Act and so on. So that is one thing which drew me towards that service. So I put my service preferences very carefully, that what I will enjoy after that. I did not put IPS because my eye power is very high, so I was not sure whether I'd be cleared for it or not. So you have to choose your service very properly. In fact, you have to make the decision of appearing for UPSC very properly. So, and I think it has happened in everyone's life that there is a point you decide you want to give UPSC, and there is the point you actually decide to prepare for it. You start reading books, you start cooking, and that gap can be 1 year, can be 5 years for many, due to various reasons. So for me, it was a long gap. So you have to be absolutely sure that this is the thing you want to do. You have to enjoy the syllabus. Again, the service is different, the exam is different. So you have to enjoy both. First the exam, and then so I did not talk to anyone in the service, but I read about it as much as I could, especially during my time here in Hyderabad. So I read about it a lot and I said, yes, fine, this is what I want to go for. So that is a very important decision you have to take. Then you have to decide whether you want to stay in a bigger metro city. So many of you might be coming from other towns. I am also from Ranchi, which is not exactly an hub of UPSC preparation. So many people from Ranchi go to Delhi, maximum go to Delhi. Hyderabad also has many coaching centers. So these are the metro cities where you get this peer group. But then you have to take the decision that will you prefer staying at home and preparing. Now I chose that because first reason was that I think that at home, being at home, I did not have to think about other things. I could only focus on my studies. That was the main reason I chose to go for that. And yes, that is, and yes, obviously that thing that so I had withdrawn from placements. I had not even tried for it. So that was a very huge decision to take. It had a lot of risk involved. But then, see, June, July, August, I had strategized and I understood the exam. Once I understood the exam, on 10th September, I withdrew from placement. So I gave myself time to understand the exam. It was not a rash decision that, okay, one fine day I woke up, I withdrew from placement. Not like that. You have to understand the exam. And since my school days only, I've been a person who does not like to study one subject in too much depth, but lot of subjects in little bit depth. So that is something which this civil services exam offers me. So, and that is a value proposition of this exam for me. And that is why I really enjoyed the whole exam process. You have to enjoy the process because it's so long that it's not just about thinking about what service you will get, what you will do once in a service. You have to enjoy the prelim stage, you have to enjoy the main stage, you have to enjoy the interview stage. That is there. Okay. Since my school days itself, I have never been a person who counts the hours I study. So it's never like today I study for 12 hours, tomorrow I'll study for 8 hours. It's never like that, okay. But I always make a to-do checklist. So on some days that to-do checklist might have only 2-3 things. But those 2-3 things might be huge. So I might take 12 hours only doing 2-3 things. Some days that to-do checklist might have 9 things. But those 9 things might be very small things like read 2 chapters of NCERT, read 1 chapter of economic survey, read the Hindu today, read this, read that, or write 1 essay. So it might be completed in only 6 hours. So I follow my to-do checklist. I don't follow any hour limitation as such. If suppose my today's checklist is completed only 3 hours, it's not that I have decided 12 hours, so I'll do the 9 hours over stressing my brain. Okay, so that is important. And I used Excel a lot in my UPSC preparation. So I used to make my timetable in Excel, my to-do list in Excel. I used to strike it off. So that way your entire record is kept. If you write it down somewhere, you might lose the record. So you can use Excel if you want. Yes, so GS answers have to be very, you should avoid writing in paragraphs. There have been few toppers who have written in paragraphs and have got very good answers, but then they must be that might have worked for them during their college days and they are comfortable with it and then they chose that. But most of the people, including myself, I went for the points approach. But my points were not just random bullet points. It was always accompanied by shapes. So you draw a lot of things in your GS answers, but in your means optional, whether it's PSIR or any other humanities. I'm not talking about science or maths or commerce because I'm not sure about these options at all. But in humanities, you have to write in paragraphs. You have to use a lot of thinkers. So writing in paragraphs shows a bit of maturity of your understanding of that topic because you have chosen that optional. So you have to show some maturity in your thinking, and if you use a quote, you have to explain it also. It's not that you just wrote that I and fear were born together, John Locke, and you're done. No, you have to describe the context why Thomas Hobbes said that, sorry. So you have to write the context why Thomas Hobbes said that, what he meant by that, how it helped him develop his theory of Leviathan and things like that. So if you write quotes, if you use thinkers, you have to put a context to it. which is very important. In GS mains, generally one does not use names of thinkers, but it's not a hard and fast rule. So there was this question this time in GS3 of cropping patterns. So I had read a study by a professor who is a very famous agricultural scientist, and I used his name and the institute he belongs to, and then I drew a map. So of showing the cropping pattern. So it's not hard and fast rule, but generally thinker names are used more in your optionals. Again, for math, science and all, it's better you ask someone who has done well in that optional. I am not the right person. Okay. So many people have told me that the note should be divided according to your GS syllabus. Yes. This dividing of syllabus I started after my prelims. Before my prelims, I used to make it date wise. So 1st July, 2nd July, and then bullet points, which is a bit unorganized, but it helped me during my prelims. Because see, in prelims, when you're attempting prelims, you need to have this in mind that out of the 100 questions, only 10-15 questions will be such that you know for sure. Like even if you're waking up in your sleep at 4 a.m., you'll know the answer. Only 10-15 questions will be like that. Only 10-15 questions will be like that you'll never be able to answer most probably. Like suppose it's some very specific question, UNESCO report, this chapter talks about this. Even if you've gone through the entire UNESCO reports, you might not be able to recall that. So there might be 10-15 questions like that. So that amounts to 20-30 questions which are in the T3 or T0 category. T3 means you are absolutely sure. T0 means that you have no clue. The remaining 70 to 80 questions will be in the T1 and T2 category. And there you have to tackle uncertainty. So if you are making notes, putting all the topics together, the daily news together, then what happens is that your points are not, not put in hard silos, exactly. They are not put in silos. You are able to intermix topics. So there was this question in my 18 prelims about Mindanao in Philippines. So that is an IR thing. But the question which was asked was more of a map work kind of thing. So if you are studying, if you are making notes of geography in isolation and IR in isolation, you might not be able to connect that. So that is very important. But after mains, what I did was that I maintained 5 notebooks. One notebook was for society and economy, first half for society, second half for economy. Another was for polity, governance and IR, entire notebook. One was for art and culture, one was for history, and one was for, I am not able to recall right now, but broadly these topics. So I had to combine some topics and I kept some topics together. So there I used to make notes based on the GS topic. So mains, it helped me more, making it in subdivided topics, but prelims, I used to put everything at the same page because you never know which information might help you where. So prelims never think of it in terms of rigid divisions, but in mains, don't take it very rigid, but yes, divisions are there because the papers are different. But prelims is one paper and one question can use an economy concept, IR concept, polity concept, everything can be there in one question. Especially in prelims, there are these questions that you have 1, 2, 3, 4 statements. Which of these is correct? Which of these is not correct? So 1, 2, 3, 4 questions can be from different topics. 1, 2, 3, 4 statements. They might not be related to the same topic. They might be different. There's a bill. So one might be the legal aspect of the bill, one might be the scientific aspect of the bill. So if you're studying in silos, you'll have problems there. Any other question? Yes. Pardon? Okay, current affairs, The Hindu, obviously I made detailed notes for prelims and for mains. I followed Insights blogs. They have this current affairs blog. So the advantage I got there was, suppose that 6 blog entries of a day. So if 4 or 5 were from The Hindu, which I had already covered while reading there, it was a revision kind of thing, and maybe they also discuss some other aspect which I might have left out, but there would be 1 or 2 blog entries which were not from The Hindu. They were from Indian Express or Live Mint, but it is or PIB. So that used to help me there. I started covering PIB in the initial days, but especially when the parliament is in session, there are some 100, 200 entries. It becomes very difficult to follow. So either you can subscribe a PIB compilation, or you can follow this approach which I did. It's on Quora. I am not able to recall his name. I think he was 112 or 117 rank. He had political science optional, and he's in IPS, I think. I'm not able to recall the name. You can Google search like PSIR Evernote. I think you will PSIR Evernote Quora. I think you will be able to get it, because I did not find any other. That was the only one. Okay, that again, it's an individual approach. So, as I told you, economic survey you have to read in 3 layers. One is that my one you mentioned, that just read it like a novel. Second time for prelims, third time for mains. That depends from book to book. Lakshmikant, I took notes simultaneously. Many books I did not take notes at all. I just read it. So that depends on the book. Psychology. See, when I first thought of attempting UPSC back in 14-15, I had thought of that optional. I had even taken psychology courses during my undergrad. So I had done 2-3 courses of psychology during my engineering, with the view of taking psychology optional. Then I came back to it this time, but I found that the paper 2 of psychology, it's very practice oriented, very application based, and I thought that my mind was not working very well answering those questions. So I did not choose that optional, but the best thing would be to find out some topper who has got a good score in that optional, what strategies they followed. One thing, and second thing, just see the previous years from 2013 onwards, since the syllabus was changed. See the questions. See that, suppose if you last night, the night before the exam, optional exam, you were not able to sleep well, you were very tired, and you see those questions. Will you be able to write something decent at least? That is very important. That helped me choose PSIR. That if you applied a test for another humanities optional, it might help you there. Again, one thing I missed out. What I did was that I did not memorize the syllabus, because I thought that there are so many things to memorize. If I memorize the syllabus, that would occupy some part of my brain. What I did was I took printout of the syllabus, all GS 1 to 4 and political science, and I got them laminated like your restaurant menu sheets. So whenever I am studying the newspaper, I used to have those menu kind of thing, laminated syllabus with me, and I used to correlate. So by seeing the syllabus so many times, I had a rough idea, but I did not learn it word to word. Okay, but many people do recommend it, and if you are able to learn it word to word, it's fine, not a problem. And I had also got printouts of previous year's questions. So whenever I used to be bored or not feeling like study, I just used to go through the previous year's questions, what topics they have touched. So if you're reading GS2 and you know that, suppose they're touching the topic of emergency again and again and again, either financial or president's rule, governor's rule, then national emergency, article 358, and then you know that this topic is important. So by going through the previous year's questions, you know which areas they are focusing on, and 70 to 80% of the questions are from the areas which have been focused on. There might be some new, like data might not be a very important question 3-4 years ago. In 2014-15, there was no, big data was not a part of a lexicon, but now it's there. So now you can, artificial intelligence was not too much there in the news. Now it might come up. So that's a new thing. And there are something that might be very in the news, very much in the news that time, but now it's not there. You have to accordingly filter out things. We'll talk about it later. Okay. So, what is your graduation subject? Pardon? Electronics and electrical. Okay. I think then agriculture might be, it's a different subject, it's a science subject. If you had a background of that in graduation, then I think it would be very helpful for you. But if it's a different subject, so if I am a chemical engineer and suddenly if I take mechanical engineering, even though few topics heat transfer, mass transfer related, but again 80% of the topics are not related, so you'll have problem there. But the thing with humanities is that these optional have been so much in vogue for such a long time, like geography, sociology, public administration, political science, that you have a huge question bank, huge amount of materials. So I would suggest that if you don't want to take electrical engineering, take electrical engineering only if you were very confident about it during your engineering days. Even if you're a bit hesitant about it, if you do not enjoy the subject, don't take it. But humanities, the thing is that you have so much material available that it's always a low risk optional. If there are people with commerce background, are there? BCom, yes. So commerce and accountancy is a very good optional. Why I say that? Even I had considered it for 1 second because during my MBA days I had studied some part of it. Human resources is there, then accounting is there, finance is there, some part, but in taxation and all is not there. Yes, BCom is there, but MBA it's not there. So I had thought about it, I went through the previous year's questions, saw the syllabus. Thing is that there are some numerical based questions also there. So like suppose they asked you to make a balance sheet. Then you know that when a balance sheet is balanced, it's balanced. You are 100% sure of that. And then there are theory questions. Yes. Yes, so there is this beautiful mix of theory and application based questions in this optional. I think in statistics also you have numericals as well as theory, so that makes the process more enjoyable. So if you have that commerce background, you can go for this optional. It has been a very high scoring optional in the recent years. There are many topper strategies available. That's very good. Yes. I'm not sure about that, but yes, there are topper strategies, and if you find something useful there, you can use it. Any other question? Any specific question related to preparation? Okay. See, one of my friends had asked me that she wanted to take Hindi literature as an optional. So I told her this is exclusively for Hindi. I'm not too sure about others because I'm not very I don't know any other language. So in Hindi, I told her that one thing is I faced during my qualifying exam in mains that I had written Hindi after class 10th for the first time in examination mode. So my speed became very slow because the script is different. But if you are very well conversant with the script of your language, if you can express yourself well, and literature subjects are static in nature. I don't think there are dynamic questions in literature. It's some poems, some prose, some particular authors you have to follow. And if you give time, if you're if you can express very well in that language, then it's a very, very good option to take, your regional language. And again, you have to be very fast in that. It should not be that you studied your language till 10th, then you did all your studies in English, and then again you're coming back to it and you're finding problems in fluency. You're not able to think, okay, what is this word called? That should not happen. But if you're very fluent, if you're very expressive, if you can write well, if you can study the literature, because here, if you're taking optional, it's not just skimming the surface like a 10th board. You have to go in depth. You have to read the best people, best authors, best poets of that language. And in all the Indian languages have a very rich literature. So if it's easy, you are able to understand it, then it's fine. But even if you feel a bit shaky about it, like I would not feel very confident taking Hindi literature. So I did not opt for it. But if you are very confident, then do go for it, and people score very good marks. There is this language called Maithili, which is a regional language in Bihar, from the place where I come from. Many of my friends from there have taken Maithili. The syllabus is also less, so they have been able to complete it within 3-4 months, and now they are focusing solely on GS because they are confident about Maithili. So you have to make that choice yourself. Yes, good question. Because there have been cases where people have not qualified for mains because they did not get enough marks in their regional language. So what I did, there are 3 major things that you have to do in that paper. One is you have to write an essay. One, you have to translate from English to the language. At least that's there in Hindi, English to Hindi, Hindi to English. Other language, I think it must be the same. So for Hindi to English translation, I took an editorial of a Hindi newspaper, the local newspaper which comes to my home. I translated it 2-3 times. I got it checked by my mom, who is very fluent in Hindi, and she said that it's okay. Then again for English to Hindi, I did the same thing, took an editorial, not from The Hindu, because The Hindu's English is of a much higher quality. Some other newspaper which has a simpler English, I translated it into Hindi. I again got it checked. And for the essay, I had decided that I will take a topic in the essay which is very factual. So I took this topic called Bharat ki Arthvyavastha aur uski chunautiyan. So there you don't have to express anything. You just have to put in all the facts and figures, the problems, inflation, this agricultural issues, this, that. Just write it in Hindi, explain it. You'll get a decent marks. And adding up all that, and some bit of grammar. So I just revised a bit of the antonyms, the synonyms, that part, muhavre and all this. And I was sure of getting a passing mark. So there again, you can't spend too much time on your languages paper. Again, same thing for English. You have to see what kind of questions are asked. So since you're already preparing for essay, which is a 250 marks paper, obviously you'll be able to do well in a 100 mark essay in your English paper. And then if you're a bit familiar with words and all, with phrases. So I had also given GRE a few years back. So I had some knowledge about words and all. So that I was able to channelize that knowledge in my English paper. So it was a mix of things.
From studying 1 week syllabus in 1 week, you made a jump to 1 week syllabus in 1 day.
Yes.
How do you see that the quality of your study is?
Okay. So when I was doing 1 week syllabus in 1 day, I was also attending classes for the entire day. So if you add up doing 8 hours of classes in my college and then 3 hours of study each day, that adds up to, suppose, 3 into 6, 18 hours a week till Saturday. Now if I do the same 18 hours, if I till then reading I used to take a lot more time in reading the newspaper at that time. By the start of March, my newspaper reading time had decreased. Till then, I used to take more time in reading Lakshmikant and all. And all the more complicated parts of Lakshmikant, like fundamental rights, parliament, all this was done by me in college itself. Now, when I came home, I was doing those chapters of Lakshmikant which are 2-3 pages, like at the end, CVC, CIC, all those chapters, which are 2-3 pages in length. So there I was a bit lucky. Then my reading speed had increased. So I was able to condense that 18 hours into 12 hours. Yes. No. Initially my quality, I was taking more time to read the same part. So if I was reading one chapter in 1 hour, now that became 15-20 minutes. So you had to adjust. You have to adjust during this preparation many times. Yes. Okay, so I did not prepare as a working professional. So whatever advice I'll give you is from what I have read somewhere in Quora. The thing is that working professionals have written that on the weekdays they study for 2-3 hours after coming from office. They try to read the news during the lunch break in their office, and on weekends they spend a lot of time, 10-12 hours every weekend. You'll have to manage, time management should be there. I did not prepare as a working professional. I was absolutely sure that if I was preparing as a working professional, I would not have done well. Because that happened with me in CAT. I was preparing for CAT while working here in Hyderabad itself. So on weekdays I used to prepare, and weekends my test centers sometimes was in Amirpet, sometimes was in Lakdi Ka Pul. I was living in Miapur, so I had to travel so long for giving tests. So all that I learned from my experience of CAT, that preparing as a working professional is very difficult. So this time I decided not to work and focus solely on. But good question. See, geography for prelims. So earlier you see previous year's questions from early 90s till 2018, you will see that in the earlier years there used to be direct questions from geography, like about Western Ghats, about Nilgiris, about this hill range, that hill range, those lakes. But these days what has happened, there's a change in the kind of question geography asked in geography. Geography now has two major components. One is map reading, one is environment. Again, why environment has got such a huge weightage? I think it's because the Indian Forest Service prelims is combined with civil services prelims. So environment is a very important topic. Environment, I use the Shankar IAS notes book, and you have to read each and every page of it. It's very important. Environment is a very important topic for prelims. If you're thorough with environment, a major chunk of your preparation is done. And for map work, see, map work, again I said, should not be done in silos. So IR plays an important role in maps. Maybe economy can also play a major role in maps. Suppose if there's a new industry being located somewhere, some city which was not in the news earlier, now it's in the news, then they might ask different questions, like if this Delhi is on its longitude, which other city is on its longitude, and that city might have been in the news for some dairy farm. So that city was in news, but the kind of question which is being asked is totally different. So map work, and what I did was, in my room, the day I shifted to my home, I stuck a world map and India's map to my wall, and I used to keep seeing it, and especially during tests, whenever I made a mistake, I used to confirm it from the map. There are many questions I asked that suppose you put one end of a triangle at Moscow, one at Durban in South Africa, other at Delhi, then which sea lies in this? There are questions like that. So you need to keep checking the world maps. You have to know the places of oceans, seas. Just keep looking. Whenever you're attempting a test, attempt the test without looking. When you're attempting, don't look. When you've made it wrong, look. If you made it right also, then look that was it a guess or did you genuinely know that position? Because that guess might have worked now in your mock, but in the actual exam it might not work.
For modern Indian history, spectrum is good or Bipin Chandra?
So most of the people study spectrum, and I bought it at a later stage for main, and I saw it's given in a very lucid manner in points. I think it would be helpful, but in my first preparation I did not get a chance to study spectrum. From what I saw afterwards, I thought that yes, and many questions in 18 prelims came from spectrum. There were very specific questions from Indian freedom movement. Indian freedom movement is again a very important chunk of prelims. So from the day the British came to India in 1604 till they left in 1947, each and every happening of the Indian freedom movement is very important. It might be a Mopla revolt, it might be the Champaran Satyagraha, it might be some doctrine of lapse, some states that were annexed. It can be anything, it can be a sequence of events. This happened first, this happened later, this happened that. So Indian freedom movement is a very, very important topic. So if you are fond of doing detailed study in any topic, then that is the topic you must do your most detailed study in. That, polity and environment. These are I think 60% of your paper approximately. Accuracy, again, that by analyzing your mocks, tackling all the T1 and T2 questions. One option sure, two options sure. What thought process you are using in eliminating them. You have to analyze in depth. Only from that you can increase the accuracy. Yes, it happens gradually. You have to maintain an Excel sheet, or even you have to write it down somewhere. So in your mock scores, what typically happens that initially you will get lower scores. It can be in any range. So for some low might be 20, for some low might be 50, for some low might be 80, for some low might be 120. It can be anything. There will be a straight line kind of thing. Then suddenly your marks will jump. It might jump to any level. So from 20 it might jump to 80, from 50 it might jump to 90, 100, from 80 it might jump to 110. It can be any jump. From 120 it might jump to 160. And then again there will be a straight line. So it will be a reverse Z kind of thing. So you have to ensure that the jump which is happening should clear your cutoff. And then when it's a straight line, you should be able to maintain in a range which is at least 10-15 marks above the threshold cutoff. So you are in a safe region. It should not happen that you are maintaining your average score would be 101. You might know some year the cutoff might be less, some year the cutoff might be more. So you might be trapped. Try to maintain above 120. If you are above 120, you are the safest. Till now, the prelims cutoff has not increased that much. And again, in prelims, there's no need to study that much that you're getting 180, 190, because getting a high score in prelims does not earn you any medal. Just have to clear. It just gives you privilege to sit for the mains exam. That's all. So you have to keep that in mind for prelims. For mains, do prepare, do write as many answers as possible. Anything else which I might have missed out? Yes, all. So the test series I joined for 19. Before mains, I was able to write, I think, 13 or 14 mocks. Okay, and all of them I used to write, scan and send. It used to come like that. I've never written a mains in a test center. Any other specific query? Because specific queries are more fun to answer. General ones everyone can describe in their blog, but paper 4? See, the paper thing with paper 4 is that in the theory part at least, concepts are limited and they are repeated a lot. So if you have a detailed notes on conflict of interest, it might be only one page. And if you be able to think of examples on your, because conflict of interest is not something that you encounter only in administration. It's something which is there right from the day you enter school. It's there every day. So if you are able to think of examples, you can write 2-3 examples which you think are suitable. Then at times people think of examples from the lives of famous people like Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela. People write these there, write some quotes, use them in the appropriate agents. So their note making can help you. Yes. Yes. Okay. What do you mean by norm? Like IBC format? So if it's different from. Okay. Content. I don't think I encountered this ever. I'm not sure because I always stuck to the. I always used to quote the known sources, second ERC report, economic survey, Niti Aayog action agenda, the known sources, Supreme Court judgments, articles of the Constitution. The more data points but don't put like 10 sources and then there's no content. 2-3 sources, 2 is quite good. And you can use them to back your recommendations. So that gives a credibility to your answer. Because if you say that this should be done, an examiner thinks that who are you to say that this is done? You are an aspirant. But if you write economic survey says this is done, it means that that recommendation is backed by rigorous research. It's very credible in the eyes of the examiner. So that helps. And the economic survey is a document that I think the UPSC examiners want you to read, because if you see GS3 first question, some form of energy is very, the first question of GS3, I am not sure if recall or not, some words were given, 4 or 5 adjectives, and this is the form of energy which is needed, affordable, accessible, something like that. That was a direct line from from economic survey. 2-3 lines of the economic survey were put in that question. So that I saw when I started preparing for mains 2019. I was reading economics and I said, oh, this was a question in GS3. So that means they want you to read that. Even many questions you can find direct answers in Niti Aayog's reports. You can use that. Okay, so I think the feedback which I got from my mocks was that you should wait for the person who's asking a question to complete their question. Then you should take a bit of a pause to understand what is being asked, and then you should answer. It should be done a bit steadily, slowly, but not so slow as to bore the person who's answering. But yes, you should think before you're answering anything. And yes, there also you can back up your points by anything you read in a newspaper report, in any other thing. If you know of an incident like that, that is the thing you have to do there. You have to be you should have this, what do you call that, maintain a very even temperament. Suppose if a question is asked which is very dear to your heart, suppose they ask you about a famous landmark in your hometown, don't get excited. Wow, they asked this, then you start jumping up there. No. Suppose if they asked you a very abstract thing that you have no clue about at all, then you don't get worried, you don't start sweating. Just calmly, in both cases, calmly say, yes sir, I have heard about this landmark. The significance of this place is this, it was built in this year, this is the thing. Very calmly. Even if something you don't know, sorry sir, I don't know about this, but if with your permission, I would like to attempt a guess at it. If they want you to guess, they'll say, okay, fine, take a guess. You have to be very even-tempered in answering. People might tell you, especially since I was preparing isolation, I did not encounter this news, but many people say that this board has this way of evaluating, that board has this way. Should avoid this kind of discussions. The basic expectation is set in the notification of the exam, and those are the qualities that they are looking for, irrespective of the board which is asking. So some ground rules have to be there for any board you encounter. There's a lot of rumors around that this board wants this, just ignore all that. Just prepare in a way, and you don't even know your board. So it's better to prepare in the way that is outlined in the civil services exam notification. They have listed certain qualities, you have to maintain those qualities. Any last 1 or 2 questions, then we can wrap up. Yes? Pardon? Websites. So I followed Insights, Secure and Current Affairs blog. PIB had started following, but then it became too much for me. I was not able to keep up with it, so I left it. Any other website? No, I don't think. I had downloaded Niti Aayog's report, so you can count it as a website, you can count it as a report. Same with economic survey, I downloaded the report, so it's a website. Huh. Pardon? Political science. So in paragraphs. So I used to explain the question, the premise of the question in the first paragraph, that what is the significance, if quote is being used, what is the context to this quote. So in optional in political science, in the first paragraph, always contextualize the question. So if it's about some thinker, if it's about some what is functionalism theory in international relations. So you have to write the context that functionalism was an idea developed during the European Union, European Economic Community, that they wanted to come together to maintain peace. Then in the next one, in the next paragraph, you can put the thinkers who have advocated this theory. What does it mean? What is its significance? And in the conclusion, that what is it? In the conclusion, in political science, even if it's a theoretical question, it's always good to give a real present day context to it. That okay, even though the coming of the European countries has prevented any further conflict, but due to the Brexit referendum, there are some challenges to this. So you present both sides of it. It has done a positive, it has done a negative, and you talked about a recent issue, Brexit. I did not consult anything, but I think the notes which I got, it might have had some relevant things from there. Yes. Okay. Yes, ma'am. So in ethics, in ethics syllabus, the thinkers are not listed. If you see the political science syllabus, the thinkers are clearly listed. Yes. Yes, so in ethics what I did was that I stuck to 2-3 thinkers and I used to find relevant quotes. And suppose if a quote, like this is one quote which I used a lot in my ethics, that was from Mahatma Gandhi, that if you plant the seeds of babul, you can't expect a rose. So whenever there was this question about using any means to achieve an end, I used to put that quote. Thank you. Thank you. Hope you found it useful. Okay. Yes. Okay.